Welcome back to Results by Nature. I'm Samantha, and this podcast where we put together here with co-founder and clinical lead Kelly is to honestly talk about what's happening with your skin and why the answers usually run a lot deeper than what's on the surface. So whether you're navigating hormonal shifts, you've been through treatment, or you just feel like nothing is working the way it should, then you're in the right place. Kelly and I built this because we've lived it. I had the lived experience, as does she, but she also brings the clinical excellence to this conversation. And so we've been asking questions that nobody was answering. So this is why we created our business. So thanks for joining us today.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome. Today's episode is hormones changed your skin, but nobody told you about it. Nobody told you.
Nobody told you. Nope. They kept it a secret.
That's right. At the end of the last episode, we talked a lot about hormones and being a big part of this story, especially our Results by Nature story. I know that firsthand after almost 10 years of some form of hormone IVF intervention for fertility. That's really kind of the crux of how Results by Nature came to be when I turned to Kelly. But almost 10 years of that fertility journey. And somewhere in the middle of it, it was like my skin, my body, my world as I knew it at that time was completely unrecognizable to me. And so I want to be clear that it wasn't that I wasn't just kind of sitting back and doing fertility stuff. I was actively seeking ways to treat my skin, actively keeping esthetician appointments. I was looking at all the right products. I had a very strict list of ingredients that I needed to adhere to, but everything that I was trying, my skin just kept getting worse. And for a really long time, I thought it was just me. I thought it was just my skin, my body, how my body was handling it. And I was oh so wrong. There's so many women like me and men as well, to be quite frank and honest about that. But there's a lot of us that have something happening inside of our body and it's expressing itself through the skin. And so this is where I came to Kelly because she has that clinical excellence and the years of experience of holistic esthetician, advanced esthetician, and medical laser work. Also, she's a certified nutritionist. I'm going to put that out there. You knew me. Yeah, I mean, you've known me for a really long time. We've been friends for a really long time. You were treating my skin specifically when I was going through the IVF, like the whole IVF section of my infertility.
Yes.
So at that time, what were you actually seeing? What were you seeing happening?
So I think the biggest thing is obviously the surface system symptoms. So seeing the cystic acne, seeing basically like those extreme inflammatory responses. So inflammation, redness, hives coming to the surface of the skin. Your skin barrier was just completely overwhelmed. And I actually then knew that acne and cystic acne wasn't really your problem, that there was something else underlying. And obviously that it was a complete system, your whole system. You were just under such a complete, enormous hormonal load. And that's really what was creating then all of your symptoms. So even though your acne was presenting like acne, treating you like acne, and not taking your barrier, your inflammation, what was going on in your complete system would have just made it worse. And that's a trap that so many women fall into, or people fall into, women, just because we're so much prominent in the beauty industry, right? And from a patient perspective, as well as a clinical perspective, when I say women fall into this, we want to treat the symptoms as a clinician because we want to make you feel better. But also you, obviously, as a patient or a client, wanting to feel better about it. That really is the thing, is both of us understanding, and that education piece about making sure that we're treating the system and not the symptoms. And
Yeah.
so I think that's really important to understand and know that hormones are playing a huge part of it, and what hormones actually do to the skin.
Yeah. I think that that's an interesting analysis of that too, because way you say it right now that actually resonates is that the challenge that my skin was presenting looked like an acne case.
Absolutely.
But you said you could tell right away that it wasn't an acne case, that if you would have treated it like an acne case, it would have actually made my skin a lot worse.
It would have.
So that's
Yeah.
interesting because I hadn't really thought about it that way because I remember it being very deep cystic pustule and just like no resolve. And the skin was very red, very inflamed. I was very easily prone to hives. Little things would set off a hive reaction right away. So, yeah, I mean, I was a little bit of a mess. I was
We
a bit of a
always
mess.
always think we are so much more than what we really are, even though there are things that are going on. But it just affects us so much emotionally as
Yeah.
well as it does physically. And so we have both of those parts in it. So like the hormones really, really, they're a good thing. They're a great thing, but
Yeah. I
they can
regulate a
also be
lot.
they can be very destructive to us as well, to
Yeah.
our emotions and to what's happening to our body.
So let's walk through that clinically a little bit. So, if estrogen and progesterone, like in my case, are being artificially manipulated, like that's what hormone therapy does, that's what IVF does. What's actually happening to the skin? Because you're pumping your body full of hormones. So
Right.
what's that actually doing to the skin?
So here's kind of where we go in hormones are great and hormones are not so great when obviously we're having too much, right? So
Mm,
estrogen is protective for the skin. It supports our collagen. It keeps our barrier function strong, regulates our sebum, although testosterone plays a big part in our sebum regulation
regulation.
as
Yeah.
well, or how much it produces. When our estrogen fluctuates dramatically, especially like during times like IVF or pregnancy or menopause or puberty, then the skin kind of loses its protection. And so
Interesting.
then when we go into the progesterone type side of things and our progesterone spikes during our cycles, during early pregnancy, we get that increased sebum production combined with a compromised skin barrier, that whole hormonal push then is a great setup for cystic breakouts. Then you have, excuse me, another, uh huh, another I get so excited
I
when we
know, it's like
talk about things.
we
I'm
like geek out on
I'm
this
such a
stuff.
nerd, I'm such a nerd.
It's like
And
hopefully
then
yeah, hopefully our listeners are geeking out too. So
right? And then you throw cortisol on there, our stress, fight or flight, wake up hormone, and you throw that on top of everything else.
Mhm.
IVF is just it's so emotional and so physically grueling. And not even with IVF also, but again, perimenopause, postmenopause, cortisol disrupts the whole barrier function. I mean, it can increase inflammation, it can trigger or worsen our hyperpigmentation. A lot of times that's where melasma can come in. And
Mm.
so that's like what we call a pregnancy mask. And so that can come though on postmenopausal women. It can come during pregnancy. So anything that really, really pushes a lot of hormones can actually cause that pregnancy mask. We usually get it like across the top of the lip, sometimes a lot when our hormones aren't regulated or influx. So extreme increase or decrease as we're getting older and go through those stages. It'll come all along the top of the forehead. And we'll get a condition on the neckline underneath, like, and along our glands called poikiloderma servate, which is basically like chicken skin. So we'll get all of a sudden capillary activity and
Mhm.
darkening hyperpigmentation. And
Mhm.
so it's just, like you said, it's kind of a mess. So when our hormones shift and it starts breaking out or causing hyperpigmentation, it's not really that the skin is breaking out. It's really that the skin is breaking down. Our barriers being compromised.
You're the only esthetician I know to call it chicken skin. But yeah, I know I've had that. I mean, it comes and goes,
Yeah.
but yeah, I know exactly what I was like,
And
"Yes, I know exactly
more
what that is."
prevalent as it gets older, but that's like what it looks like, right? And
Yeah, it
so
does. Yeah, when you look yeah, up close, yeah, definitely.
yes. So when I
Yeah.
say poikiloderma servate, do you know what I'm talking about? Like most people don't until I say our chicken skin that we're getting, this is what it's called, right? I know it's just so funny to call it chicken skin.
Yeah. But yeah, it does create quite the visual. It
Yes.
creates quite the visual. But yeah, I mean, if you explain it that way, then somebody would immediately know what you're talking about, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's like, okay, so beyond the IVF, I mean, just beyond hormone therapy, beyond IVF, miscarriage, pregnancy, breastfeeding, postpartum, all the after effects of the postpartum. It's like, I know that I have heard just my own friends in our age categories, like, gosh, at like 40 years old, I have acne for the first time. I never had acne. What's that caused from? What's happening? It's like they can't explain it. Nobody can tell them why. And they go to, this provider, dermatology tells them this, esthetician tells them this, friends tell them this, their doctor tells them that. So it's like there's this whole kind of movement in terms of understanding how the hormones impact the body and how over time those hormones, how they fluctuate in our body so dramatically from perimenopause to menopause, or even prior to that, if we talk about my specific case of IVF in general. But just as women and our bodies go through massive transformation hormonally over our entire lifetime. And so that whole hormonal cascade is what you're describing.
Right. We get the escalation or the de-escalation, right? And so depending on which age group we're in or depending on what's happening in our lives. And so really here's what's really important is it's the trigger is different. So puberty, menopause, perimenopause, IVF, pregnancy, on birth control, off of birth control, but the driver is the same. So the trigger is different, but the driver is the same.
Mm,
That understanding that, and again, understanding that the skin is a system is a huge jump in education and how in clinic we should actually be looking at the skin and treating the skin.
I love that. The trigger is different, but the driver is the same.
Yes,
Yeah, you have to kind of sit with that for a minute because that's a big deal. It's like, yeah, the trigger is different. The life stage is different, but the driver, the hormonal driver is the exact same. And I
exactly.
guess, with that cortisol spike, that is just another complicated layer on top of the whole complicated layer of the hormone cascade.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And you have to calm that driver down, bring
Yes,
them
you
back.
do. Yeah, I mean, I used to think that self-care was so much about, relaxing in the tub or, for some people, glass of wine. I can't have wine because I'm allergic to sulfites, but, just like doing things like that, retail therapy. I'm very acquainted with that. But really
I
it's
like how you say that and your voice kind of gets quieter.
yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I can go do a nice retail therapy and it always kind of sparks my mood. But you have to watch that because that can become a distraction. That's a whole other conversation.
Right.
Yeah, but it's really working that bagel tone, working with your internal compass, what's happening internally. And one of the things that we talked about in the last episode, you had asked that question of like what was going on for me at that time that really bothered me externally, like my skin. I forget exactly how you worded it, but you asked me a question that was something to the effect of everything that was going on. Why did that bother me so much? What was happening on the external? And it was like that epiphany of, um, at that time, so much, I think for human behavior, for me specifically, I largely look to the outside to try to make myself feel better. So if my skin was a hot mess, then that just added more stress, right? Because I was looking to the external to feel what was happening internally, which
Right.
was I wasn't handling the whole emotional toll of am I pregnant? Am I not pregnant? I had a miscarriage. That was a hard miscarriage. Friends and family who meant well checking in on me, but that added pressure of like, can't my body do what is so easy for so many other people?
Right.
And so there was all of this stuff happening. So I just wanted to look good and feel good. And so when my skin was freaking out on me and you said what was that? It was me trying to kind of control what was happening externally because I did not feel like I had control internally. And that's such a
Exactly.
mind switch. Yeah.
Yes, and but the big thing is always remembering too, and like from a clinical aspect of things, is understanding what someone is going through and also understanding that because we can say all day long, "You're a beautiful person. This outside symptom that's happening is not really who you are." But we also have to understand that it's not just the internal insecurities or the internal being out of control, but it's actually those hormones that
That
are
yeah.
playing a big part into that self-talk. And
Right.
so understanding and soothing that part of things and getting that under control. And I think that's a big part of how we should treat in clinic as well. So we
Yeah.
talk about the system, but we also have to talk about not just the functional system, the whole body and the hormones, but also the emotional part of it too,
Yeah.
because it all plays in together.
It all plays in. Is and then that's that whole integrative part of it. It's not just like East meets West or clinical and holistic. It really is that yin and that yang, bringing that balance in, taking an integrative approach to everything. I mean,
Right.
it's taken me a really long time to feel safe in my body again, to feel calm, to feel internally calm. Because I think what I mentioned to you after the last episode was it took me a little bit of time to realize that while I was so busy trying to fix out here, which is important, I don't want to undermine that. That's important for people. This is certainly important for me. But it was if I just nurtured what was happening internally, then the external actually will resolve itself.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that
Not
integrative
necessarily
piece.
itself, depending on where it's at, right?
Right,
Because
right,
most
right,
of the
right.
area is
Yes.
compromised.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yes, it plays a huge role
Yes.
in getting better. Absolutely, it
Right.
does.
Yeah, because then if you're just taking that moment to just kind of sit with your uncomfortableness, drink some water, increase your omegas. I mean, those are like little simple kind of self-care things that I started implementing that, now my skin's not as dehydrated. I mean, there's like little things like that too, where if you're talking about just more of that holistic piece of becoming integrative, that's off topic and we can talk about that in another episode, but it's just, it's like taking all the different pieces.
Absolutely. And little things, like
Yeah.
really understanding how patience plays a part in it and really understanding how the body works and that the body is a well-tuned system, but once something in the body degrades, it takes time for it to build back up again. And
Hmm.
so just really understanding and being very clear that this is a path or a road that we're on together
Right.
and this is how it can be taken care of. And sometimes having that clinician reiterate that, even though we don't like to hear things are going to take time, like we want to know that things are going to change pretty quickly, but just having someone there to say, it's okay, we'll get through this stage. Yes, it may get worse before it gets better, but I'm here and we're going to correct that. I'm here and we're going to walk through this together. That's where we come in with that holistic, integrative, functional approach as well, and really understanding and taking the time. Yeah,
Well, this one is a little bit of a shorter episode, but that concludes today's episode
that's
because
it.
we want to dive deeper into more segments next time. So we'll be planning that here soon. But that's really a wrap for this one. We want to thank you all for being here. It means a lot to us that you spent your time with us today. If we said anything that's landed for you, we would love to hear from you. Literally read every comment and every email ourselves. Kelly and I do. So you can find us via email at hello at results by nature. Our website is resultsbynature.com. We are also on Instagram, all socials at results by nature. Anything else?
YouTube and
YouTube,
Spotify as well.
Spotify.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
At
And if
Results by Nature. Yep.
Absolutely.
We're
And so
everywhere.
we're everywhere. So subscribe wherever if you want to hear more information and learn more about what we're doing. It's really exciting. We're doing a lot of great stuff. Thanks for listening and don't miss what's coming next. Kelly and I will be back soon.
Have a great day. Bye.